The shuttle descended through Earth's atmosphere, leaving a trail of light across the evening sky. Captain Sarah Chen watched from the observation deck of the Pacific Defense Station, her hands pressed against the cool glass. After 200 years of searching, listening, and hoping, humanity was finally meeting someone else. The alien ship was beautiful. It didn't look like the warships from old science fiction movies. Instead, it resembled a massive flower made of silver petals, each one reflecting the sunlight in different colors. The ship moved slowly, broadcasting messages of peace in 50 human languages. Sarah felt the excitement around her. Her fellow officers cheered and hugged each other. Some were crying with joy, but Sarah remained quiet, watching carefully. She had been a soldier for 15 years, and soldiers learned to be cautious. The first aliens to step onto Earth's soil were called the Etheri. They looked like birds that had evolved to walk upright, with feathers that shimmered blue and green. Their leader, Ambassador Tavrine, spoke through a translation device that made his voice sound gentle and warm. "People of Earth," Tavrine said to the billions watching on screens across the planet, "we come as friends. The Galactic Confederation welcomes humanity to the community of civilized worlds." The celebration lasted for weeks. Earth's cities erupted in festivals. The stock market soared. Scientists wept as they received alien technology that could cure diseases and produce unlimited clean energy. It seemed too good to be true. Dr. Marcus Webb thought the same thing. He was a xenoanthropologist, someone who studied alien cultures. The Confederation had assigned him to learn everything about the 7 species that made up their alliance. He spent his days in the alien compound outside Geneva, talking with representatives from each species. The Etheri were the diplomats, graceful and kind. The Torvan were strong but gentle, like intelligent elephants made of stone. The Kashari were small and nervous, always seeking approval. The Plenari floated in tanks of liquid, communicating through color changes. Each species was fascinating, and each one was remarkably peaceful. "Don't you ever fight?" Marcus asked Tavrine one afternoon. They sat in a garden designed to make the Etheri feel at home, with tall grasses and scattered rocks for perching. Tavrine's feathers ruffled slightly. "Fight? No, Dr. Webb, the Confederation abandoned such primitive behavior centuries ago. We resolve all disputes through discussion and compromise. But what if someone attacks you? What if there's a threat?" "There are no threats in civilized space," Tavrine said. His voice was firm, but Marcus noticed the ambassador's claws gripping the perch a little tighter. "We have moved beyond such concerns." Meanwhile, Sarah was dealing with a different problem. The Earth Defense Force was being decommissioned. The governments of Earth had decided that military forces were no longer necessary. Why would humanity need weapons when they had friends among the stars? "This is a mistake," Sarah told her commanding officer, General Rodriguez. They stood in his office while workers outside packed away equipment and files. "The decision is made, Captain," Rodriguez said. He looked tired. "Humanity is entering a new age. We don't need soldiers anymore. We need scientists, diplomats, and teachers. But we're vulnerable," Sarah insisted. "We're dismantling everything that keeps us safe." "Safe from what?" "The Confederation has been peaceful for 300 years. There hasn't been a single conflict in their entire space. We're joining a better way of life, Sarah. Try to see that." Sarah wanted to argue more, but she could see it was useless. Within 6 months, Earth's military was reduced to small ceremonial units. Nuclear weapons were dismantled. Warships were converted into cargo vessels. The few soldiers who remained, like Sarah, were given jobs as security consultants or encouraged to retire. But Sarah wasn't ready to give up. She visited military bases being shut down, talking to old generals who shared her concerns. Some of them had secretly preserved weapons and equipment, hiding them in secure locations. They didn't trust the sudden peace any more than she did. "Call it insurance," General Patterson told her at a closed base in Montana. He was 70 years old and had fought in the resource wars as a young man. "Maybe we're wrong. Maybe the aliens are exactly what they seem. But if we're right, someone needs to be prepared." Sarah agreed. She created a small network of people who felt the same way. They called themselves the Keepers. Not rebels or militants, just cautious people who believed in being ready for anything. Marcus was making his own discoveries. As he studied Confederation history, he noticed something strange. All 7 species had achieved space travel within a 50-year period, about 300 years ago. Before that, Their records were vague and incomplete. "It's almost like your entire civilization started at the same time," Marcus said to Tavrine during one of their regular meetings. The ambassador's feathers flattened against his body, a sign of discomfort Marcus had learned to recognize. "We prefer to focus on the present and future, Dr. Webb. The past is less important than what we build together now." But Marcus couldn't let it go. Something didn't add up. Why would 7 different species from 7 different worlds all reach the same technological level at almost the same time? And why were they so determined not to discuss their history? 2 years passed. Earth transformed into a paradise. Poverty disappeared as alien technology provided food, water, and energy for everyone. Diseases were cured. The climate was stabilized. Humanity built colonies on 3 worlds the Confederation had approved, each one carefully chosen to be safe and comfortable. But late at night, Sarah Chen still watched the stars from her apartment in Singapore. She had taken a job training security personnel for the colony ships, a position that kept her connected to what remained of Earth's defensive capabilities. And Marcus Webb still searched through databases, looking for answers that everyone else seemed happy to ignore. He had found references to an 8th species in some of the older files, mentions that were quickly deleted or corrected, but the evidence remained, like ghosts in the machine. Neither of them knew that their concerns were about to become very real. Neither of them knew that the peace they questioned was built on a foundation of fear, and neither of them knew that something was coming, something that had been traveling through the dark spaces between stars for a very long time. The Confederation knew. They had always known, and they were terrified. 3 years had passed since first contact. Earth looked different now, with alien architecture blending into human cities. Towers made of living crystal grew alongside steel skyscrapers. Parks filled with plants from 6 different worlds attracted tourists from across the planet. Children learned alien languages in school. Everything seemed perfect. Sarah Chen walked through the Memorial Garden in New Singapore, a place dedicated to Earth's military history. Statues of soldiers from every era stood frozen in metal and stone. Few people visited anymore. War was considered an embarrassing part of humanity's past, something civilized people didn't discuss. "You come here often," a voice said behind her. It was Tavrine. The Etheri ambassador had become something of a friend over the years, though Sarah always kept her guard up. "I like to remember," Sarah said simply. Tavrine's feathers shifted colors, showing thoughtfulness. "Your species has embraced peace remarkably well. We are pleased. Are you?" Sarah turned to face him. "Sometimes I wonder if you're pleased or just relieved." The ambassador didn't answer right away. He looked at the statues, his bird-like eyes reflecting the sunset. "Your people are stronger than you realize, Captain Chen. Physically, mentally, emotionally. Did you know that humans can run farther than any Confederation species? That you heal faster? That you can eat almost anything and survive in almost any environment? I didn't know you were studying us so closely." "We study all our members," Tavrine said, but something in his voice sounded sad. "It is important to understand each other." Across the city, Marcus Webb was having a breakthrough. He had spent 3 years collecting fragments of information, pieces of a puzzle that nobody else seemed to want to solve. Tonight, in his small office at the Xenoanthropology Institute, he finally saw the complete picture. The Confederation's history didn't start 300 years ago. It went back thousands of years, but something terrible had happened 3 centuries past. Something that made 7 species simultaneously abandon their military forces, edit their historical records, and hide in a small corner of the galaxy. Marcus pulled up a file he had recovered from a damaged Confederation database. It was a monument inscription from a Torvan world, written in an ancient form of their language. The translation software struggled with the old words, but the meaning was clear enough. "In memory of the Velari, who went into the darkness to protect us all, may they find peace among the stars." The Velari. Marcus had seen that name before, always in deleted files or corrected documents. He searched deeper, using access codes that Tavrine had given him for his research. What he found made his blood run cold. The Velari had been the 9th species of the Confederation. They were warriors, protectors, the ones who defended the others. Pictures showed them as tall, powerful beings with 4 arms and armor-plated skin. Every military installation, every warship, every defensive station had been built and operated by the Velari. 300 years ago, The Velari detected something at the edge of Confederation space. Something big. Something wrong. They took their entire fleet, 40 million warriors, and went to investigate. They sent one message back: "We will protect you." Then silence. Complete silence. 40 million Velari vanished without a trace. The remaining Confederation species panicked. They shut down every military facility. They destroyed weapons and dismantled defense networks. They edited the Velari out of their history, as if forgetting them would make the danger go away. Then they went silent, reducing their energy signatures, hiding from whatever had taken their protectors. For 300 years, they waited in fear. Marcus sat back in his chair, his hands shaking. "They contacted us because they needed new warriors," he whispered to himself. They needed someone to replace the Velari, but there was more. Marcus found records of Confederation discussions before first contact. They had debated whether to approach humanity. Some argued it was too dangerous to contact a predator species. Others said it was necessary. But the final decision had been unanimous. Contact Earth, integrate humanity quickly, and encourage rapid expansion and colonization. Create a large energy signature. Make noise, draw attention, not to protect the Confederation, to draw danger away from it. Marcus grabbed his phone and called Sarah. "We need to talk. Right now. In person." They met at Sarah's apartment an hour later. Marcus brought his files on a secure data stick. Sarah poured them both drinks, sensing bad news. As Marcus explained everything he had discovered, Sarah's expression went from curious to angry to horrified. "They used us as bait," Sarah said quietly. "They handed us technology so we would expand faster, colonize more worlds, make more noise. All to attract attention away from their own space." "I think so," Marcus said. "But I don't think they're evil. I think they're terrified. Whatever took the Velari scared them so badly that they've been hiding for 3 centuries. Does Tavreen know? I don't know. Maybe. He's always seemed uncomfortable when I ask about history." Sarah stood and paced her apartment. Outside the windows, New Singapore glowed with lights from a dozen worlds. Humans and aliens walked the streets together, enjoying the peace. None of them knew they might be living in a trap. "We need to investigate what happened to the Velari," Sarah said. "Before we tell anyone, we need to know what we're dealing with. If we're wrong, we'll look like paranoid fools. If we're right and we panic everyone, it might make things worse," Marcus agreed. They decided to work together, combining Marcus's research access with Sarah's military contacts. The Keepers network that Sarah had maintained still existed, with people scattered across Earth and the colonies. Some of them had access to deep space monitoring systems that hadn't been completely shut down. It took 2 months of careful investigation, 2 months of sneaking into databases and asking careful questions, 2 months of piecing together fragments of a tragedy 300 years old. They found the location where the Velari fleet had vanished. It was a region of space that the Confederation avoided, an empty zone with no stars and no colonies. Marcus and Sarah convinced one of Sarah's contacts to point a deep space telescope in that direction. What they saw made them wish they hadn't looked. There was debris. Fields of it, spread across light years of space, the shattered remains of 40 million Velari warriors, and something else, something their telescope's limited range could barely detect. A faint energy signature, massive and artificial, moving slowly through the darkness. Moving toward Confederation space, moving toward Earth. Sarah's phone rang. It was the Pacific Defense Station, her old posting. The voice on the other end was panicked. "Captain Chen, we've detected something at the edge of the solar system. It's big. It's decelerating, and it's heading straight for Earth." Marcus and Sarah looked at each other. They had found their answers. But they were 300 years too late. The object was larger than Earth's moon. That was the first thing the telescopes confirmed. The second thing was worse. It was clearly artificial, covered in geometric patterns and structures that hurt to look at for too long. The third thing was the worst. It was slowing down, which meant it intended to stop. Sarah stood in the emergency command center that had been hastily reactivated in Geneva. Around her, people who hadn't worn uniforms in years were trying to remember their training. Screens showed the object from every angle, each view more terrifying than the last. "How long until it reaches Earth?" asked President Okoye. She had flown in from the African Union headquarters an hour ago. "At current deceleration rate, 48 hours. answered a technician who had been working at a museum yesterday. And the Confederation? Sarah pulled up another screen. It showed space traffic around Earth. Every Confederation ship was leaving. Not quickly, not obviously, but they were all finding reasons to depart. Medical emergencies, important meetings, scheduled maintenance. Within 6 hours, not a single alien vessel remained in Earth's orbit. "They're running," Sarah said. Marcus burst into the room, Tavreen following behind him. The Etheri ambassador looked smaller somehow, his feathers dull and flat against his body. He wasn't hiding his fear anymore. "Tell them," Marcus demanded. "Tell them everything." Tavreen's head lowered. When he spoke, his voice was barely a whisper. "They are called the Harvesters. We do not know where they came from or when they were made. They travel through the galaxy, finding civilized species and consuming them. Not just killing, consuming, they take everything. Resources, technology, biological matter. They leave nothing behind but empty worlds. The Velari fought them," Marcus added, 300 years ago. For 20 years they fought. Every battle they lost ships. Every victory was temporary. The Harvesters learned, adapted, and came back stronger. The Velari were the finest warriors the galaxy had ever seen, Tavreen continued. They had weapons and tactics developed over 10,000 years. They were fearless and skilled, and the Harvesters destroyed them completely. President Okoye's face was stone. "And you brought them here? To us?" "No." Tavreen's feathers flared up. "We did not know they would come. We thought they had moved on. We thought if we stayed quiet, small, hidden, they would never find us again. But you made us big," Sarah said coldly. "You gave us technology and encouraged us to colonize. You made us loud. You turned us into a target." Tavreen couldn't meet her eyes. The Confederation Council believed that having a strong ally would protect us. That humanity's warrior spirit would make you capable of defense where we had failed. "You mean you hoped we would fight them instead of you," Marcus said. The ambassador didn't deny it. "I argued against it. I told them it was wrong. But I was overruled. The council was desperate. And then I met you, met humans, and realized what we had done. You were not warriors. You were people. People with families and dreams and hope. We had put you in danger to save ourselves." Sarah wanted to be angry, but she could see Tavreen was genuinely ashamed. Anger wouldn't help now. They needed information. "Tell us everything about the Harvesters," she commanded. "Weapons, tactics, weaknesses. Everything the Velari learned." Tavreen provided data chips that Marcus quickly loaded into the command center's computers. What they saw was horrifying. The Harvesters operated like machines, which made sense because that's what they were. Ancient artificial intelligence, possibly millions of years old, designed for one purpose: harvest resources to build more of themselves. The main ship was a factory. The smaller vessels were drones, each one capable of dismantling a city in hours. They were attracted to energy signatures, especially the specific frequencies that advanced civilizations produced. They would arrive, deploy their drones, and systematically strip a planet bare. The Velari tried everything, Tavreen explained. Nuclear weapons barely scratched them. Energy weapons were absorbed and used against them. Projectile weapons worked better, but the Harvesters adapted their armor. Biological weapons were useless against machines. Computer viruses couldn't penetrate their systems. After 20 years, the Velari made a final stand with their entire fleet. And lost, Sarah finished. They damaged the main Harvester ship badly enough that it withdrew. The smaller vessels followed. The Confederation hoped they were gone forever. Tavreen looked at the screens showing the approaching vessel. "We were wrong," President Okoye stood. "Then we prepare to evacuate. We get as many people off Earth as possible." "Where?" Sarah asked. "The Harvesters track energy signatures. Any ship that leaves will lead them to wherever we go. And we don't have enough ships anyway. Most of our vessels are civilian transports not designed for mass evacuation. Then what do we do?" Sarah looked at the data from the Velari battles. She looked at Earth's remaining defenses, which were pitiful compared to what the Velari had commanded. She looked at the timeline. 48 hours until the Harvesters arrived. "We fight," Sarah said simply. The room went silent. People stared at her like she was crazy. "Captain Chen," General Rodriguez said gently, "the Velari had 40 million warriors and weapons far beyond anything we possess. They fought for 20 years and lost. We have perhaps 10,000 trained soldiers, outdated equipment, and 2 days. Fighting is suicide. Then we die fighting, Sarah said. Because if we run, we die anyway. The harvesters will hunt us across the galaxy. But if we fight here on our homeworld, maybe we hurt them enough that they leave. Maybe we survive. The Velari couldn't hurt them enough, someone pointed out. Sarah smiled, and it wasn't a nice smile. The Velari weren't human. Marcus understood first. She's right. The Confederation species are all prey animals. They evolved on worlds without major predators. They don't have our history of warfare, our instinct for violence, our refusal to give up. Humanity spent 200,000 years as apex predators, Sarah continued. We climbed to the top of Earth's food chain with nothing but sticks and stones and the refusal to quit. We fought wars for resources, for territory, for ideas. We built weapons that could destroy our entire planet. We are very good at violence, and we've only stopped recently. She pulled up a map showing the locations of preserved military equipment. The Keepers maintained stockpiles, weapons that were supposed to be destroyed. I can have them distributed within 24 hours. You kept illegal weapons? President Okoye asked, though she didn't sound angry. I kept insurance, Sarah replied, and right now that insurance is all we have. Tavarine spoke up, his voice stronger now. I will stay. The Confederation fleets have abandoned you, but I will not. I will help however I can. So will I, Marcus added. I'm not a soldier, but I can analyze harvester tactics. President Okoye looked around the room at the frightened faces. Then she straightened her shoulders and nodded. Very well. Captain Chen, you have operational command of Earth's defense. Use whatever resources you need. If we're going to die, we'll die on our feet. Sarah felt the weight of the world settle on her shoulders. Literally. She began issuing orders, calling in the Keepers, activating old defense grids, pulling out weapons that hadn't been fired in years. The harvesters were coming. They expected easy prey, a defenseless civilization ready for harvesting. They had encountered hundreds of species in their long existence, and all of them had fallen. But they had never encountered humanity before. They had never met a species that looked at impossible odds and said, "Try us." Sarah watched the countdown timer. 46 hours until contact. 46 hours to prepare for the fight of humanity's existence. She smiled grimly. It would have to be enough. The first drone ships detached from the main harvester vessel when it was still 1,000,000 kilometers from Earth. There were thousands of them, each one the size of a skyscraper. They moved in perfect formation, spreading out to surround the planet like a closing fist. Sarah watched from the command center, now relocated to a bunker deep beneath Geneva. Every screen showed a different nightmare. The drones were beautiful in a terrible way, all smooth surfaces and alien geometry that seemed to shift when viewed directly. All units, hold fire until they enter range, Sarah commanded. Her voice was calm, but her hands gripped the edge of the console hard enough to hurt. Wait for my signal. Around Earth, the hastily assembled defense fleet waited. It wasn't much. 200 ships that had been civilian transports last week, now fitted with whatever weapons could be installed quickly. 30 military vessels that had been kept in museums and private collections. 15 nuclear satellites that were supposed to have been dismantled but weren't. And 20,000 humans in spacesuits, carrying weapons and explosives ready to do whatever was necessary. The harvesters had protocols. They had harvested hundreds of civilizations. They knew how advanced species reacted. Panic, attempted negotiation, disorganized resistance, and finally acceptance. Their algorithms accounted for everything. Everything except humanity's particular brand of insanity. The drones entered weapons range. Sarah gave the signal. The nuclear satellites fired first. 15 missiles, each carrying warheads that had been illegal for 50 years. The harvesters' defensive systems activated, shooting down most of them. But 3 got through, detonating in brilliant flashes that lit up space. When the light faded, the drones were still there. Scorched, damaged, but functional. They began to accelerate toward Earth. Phase 2, Sarah ordered. The transport ships broke formation and scattered. The harvesters adjusted their pursuit, algorithms calculating optimal pursuit vectors. They began to chase the fleeing vessels exactly as expected. What they didn't expect was for the ships to suddenly reverse direction and ram them. Captain Joe's transport, carrying 500 volunteers, struck a drone at full speed. The impact destroyed both vessels, but the explosion damaged 2 other drones nearby. Across the battlefield, similar collisions occurred. humans sacrificing themselves to take down enemies. The harvesters had never encountered this tactic. Their database contained no reference to sapient beings voluntarily destroying themselves. They hesitated for 1.3 seconds, recalculating their approach. In that hesitation, the rest of Earth's fleet attacked. Marcus watched from the command center, tears streaming down his face as ships disappeared from the tactical display. Each blinking light represented hundreds of people choosing to die fighting. "They're learning," he said, pointing at the harvester patterns. "The drones are adapting their formations." "Then we adapt faster," Sarah replied. She opened a channel to all remaining ships. "All units switch to dispersal pattern Delta. Make them chase you. Lead them through the debris fields." The human ships scattered again, but this time they weren't running. They were leading the harvesters into traps. Old satellites, dead spacecraft, and deliberately placed mines floated in the debris of earlier battles. The harvesters, designed for efficiency, flew through the debris to chase their targets. The mines detonated. More drones fell, but there were still thousands of them, and now they were angry. They abandoned pursuit tactics and began a direct assault on Earth itself. "This is it," Sarah said. "Ground forces, prepare for contact." The drones entered Earth's atmosphere like falling stars. They landed in cities and farmlands and oceans. Where they landed, they began to harvest. Buildings dissolved. The ground itself was consumed, broken down into component atoms and sucked into the drones' collection pods. But humanity was waiting. In Tokyo, a drone landed in Shinjuku district. It began consuming the abandoned buildings, its collection beam sweeping the area. Then explosions erupted from inside the structures. Humans had turned every building into a bomb. The drone staggered, damaged but not destroyed. It didn't get a chance to recover. Fighters armed with anti-tank weapons appeared on rooftops, targeting the exposed machinery. The drone fired back, killing dozens, but more humans appeared. They swarmed it like ants attacking a beetle, each one doing small damage, but together bringing it down. Across the planet, the pattern repeated. The harvesters had expected resistance at a distance. They hadn't expected prey that fought with teeth and claws when missiles failed. In Mumbai, a drone was brought down by a crowd with industrial equipment. In São Paulo, humans used the drone's own harvesting beam against it, reflecting it with stolen Confederation technology. In Moscow, they simply buried a drone under an entire building. They collapsed on top of it. Humanity was losing. Millions died in the first hour. Cities were devastated. But they were also winning in a way the harvesters couldn't understand. Every drone destroyed was one less threat. And humans kept coming, kept fighting, kept refusing to die quietly. In orbit, the main harvester ship observed the battle. Its central intelligence processed the data with growing confusion. The prey species should have broken by now. They should have surrendered or fled. Instead, they were fighting harder. The ship activated deeper protocols, ones used only for the most dangerous prey. It began deploying its reserve forces and preparing to defend itself. In the command bunker, Tavrin was crying openly. "I'm sorry," he kept saying. "I'm so sorry." "Stop apologizing and help me," Marcus snapped. He was analyzing the harvester ship's structure from telescope data. "There has to be a weakness. The Velari must have found something." Tavrin pulled himself together and accessed the Velari battle records. They discovered the drones operate on a networked system. The main ship coordinates everything. If you could disrupt that coordination, could we hack it? Marcus asked. The Velari tried for years and failed. The harvester code is too alien, too complex. Marcus stared at the screen showing the massive ship in orbit. It was beginning to move, descending toward Earth's atmosphere. Once it arrived, the battle would be over. Nothing humanity had could damage something that size. "What if we don't hack it?" Marcus said slowly. "What if we infect it?" "With what?" "They're machines. Machines with organic components." Marcus pulled up detailed scans. The harvester ship wasn't purely mechanical. Parts of it were biological, grown rather than built. They harvest biological material. They must integrate it somehow. Sarah joined them, leaving her tactical display. "What are you thinking?" "Computer viruses don't work on harvester systems," Marcus explained quickly. "But what about biological viruses? What about something that attacks the organic components?" "We don't have time to develop a bioweapon," Sarah said. "No, but we have something better." Marcus grinned wildly. "We have human creativity and Earth biology. The harvesters have harvested hundreds of species, but they've never encountered Earth biology. Our viruses, our bacteria, our prions. They're unique to our planet. Tavrine understood. You want to infect them with Earth diseases. Modified diseases, Marcus corrected. Aggressive, fast-spreading, designed to consume organic material. Combined with a computer virus that doesn't hack their systems but just spreads chaos through them. How do we deliver it? Sarah asked. Marcus and Sarah looked at each other. The same answer occurred to both of them. We go there, Sarah said. We board the main ship and infect it directly. It was insane. It was suicide. It was humanity's only chance. I'll need volunteers, Sarah said. You'll have thousands, Marcus replied. Including me. You're a scientist, not a soldier, and we're going to need both. Marcus straightened his shoulders. Besides, someone has to make sure the virus is deployed correctly. Sarah wanted to argue but didn't have time. The main harvester ship was entering the atmosphere. She could see it on the screens. A mountain of alien metal descending through the clouds. Get me a ship that can dock with that thing, Sarah ordered. Get me your virus package, and get me anyone crazy enough to fly into the mouth of hell. Turned out there were plenty of humans that crazy. The assault ship was a patchwork of human and Confederation technology, assembled in 6 hours by engineers who hadn't slept since the crisis began. Sarah stood in the cargo bay with 50 volunteers, each one checking weapons and equipment. Marcus was there too, wearing armor that didn't quite fit and clutching a container filled with what might save or doom them all. The plan is simple, Sarah told her team. We breach the harvester hull, fight our way to what looks like a central processing area, and deploy the package. Then we get out. And if we can't get out? Asked Lieutenant Park. Then we make sure the package deploys anyway, Sarah said flatly. No one argued. The ship launched from what was left of Singapore, accelerating straight up through the battle-scarred atmosphere. Around them, Earth burned. Entire cities were gone, reduced to empty craters. But humans still fought. In every remaining city, on every continent, people with whatever weapons they could find were attacking the drones. The Harvester main ship loomed ahead, so massive it seemed to blot out the stars. Its surface was a landscape of alien architecture, towers and trenches and structures that hurt to look at. Defensive systems tracked the small human vessel, calculating threat levels. They decided it wasn't a threat. Too small, too insignificant. The guns didn't fire. They're ignoring us, the pilot said, disbelief in her voice. They think we're not worth the ammunition, Sarah replied. Good. Get us to that docking structure Marcus identified. The ship dove toward a section of the harvester that looked like it might be an intake port, a massive opening designed for collecting harvested materials. The pilot threaded the ship through defensive fields and landed hard inside a chamber filled with organic machinery. We're in, Sarah announced. Move out. The team poured out of the ship into a nightmare. The interior of the harvester was like being inside a living thing. Walls pulsed. Strange fluids ran through transparent tubes. The air itself felt wrong, charged with energy that made their hair stand up. Readings are going crazy, Marcus said, checking his scanner. The organic components are everywhere. This thing isn't just a ship, it's partially alive. Which way? Sarah asked. Marcus consulted the Villari data. The central coordination system should be toward the center of the ship. That way. They moved quickly through corridors that seemed to shift and change around them. Twice they encountered harvester drones, smaller versions designed for internal security. The fights were brutal and short. Humans had learned that overwhelming firepower worked better than precision. Behind them, they left destroyed drones and injured team members who couldn't continue. No one was left alone. The wounded either kept moving or stayed with weapons ready, determined to buy time if the harvesters came. Sarah's team reached what Marcus believed was the central chamber after 40 minutes of fighting. It was vast, a cathedral of alien technology. In the center was something that looked almost organic, a massive brain made of living metal and pulsing tissue. That's it, Marcus breathed. That's the coordination system. It's networked to every drone, every system. If we can infect this, alarm shrieked. The harvesters had finally realized the threat. Drones poured into the chamber from every entrance. Hold them, Sarah shouted. Her team formed a defensive perimeter, firing at the incoming machines. Marcus, deploy it now. Marcus. ran to the central system, pulling out the containers. Inside were modified Earth viruses, bacteria, and prions, all engineered to be as aggressive as possible. Mixed with them was a computer worm, not sophisticated enough to hack harvester systems, but designed to replicate endlessly, clogging their networks. He poured the mixture directly onto the organic components. Nothing happened for 3 seconds. Then the central system began to convulse. The organic parts turned black, rotting visibly. The metal components sparked and smoked. The infection spread like wildfire through tissue designed to interface between biological and mechanical systems. The drones in the chamber suddenly stopped fighting. They stood frozen, receiving no commands. Then they started attacking each other, their programming corrupted by the spreading chaos. "It's working," Marcus shouted. "The infection is spreading through the network." Throughout the harvester ship, systems began failing. Drones on Earth stopped mid-harvest, standing motionless or moving randomly. The main ship's descent slowed and stopped as navigation systems failed. Power fluctuated wildly. "Time to leave." Sarah grabbed Marcus and pulled him toward the exit. Her team fought their way back through corridors filled with malfunctioning machinery and dying drones. They almost made it. Lieutenant Park was hit by debris from an exploding conduit. 3 others were cut down by a drone that had just enough function left to fire its weapons. Sarah took shrapnel to her leg but kept moving. The assault ship was still there, its pilot having refused to leave. They piled inside, and the ship launched just as the chamber collapsed behind them. Breaking free of the dying harvester ship, they could see the full scope of what they had done. The massive vessel was coming apart, sections breaking off and burning in the atmosphere. Across the planet, every drone was either destroyed or destroying itself. The network that had coordinated them was gone, replaced by spreading corruption. The main ship broke into 3 pieces. 2 fell toward the ocean. The third crashed into what had been the Gobi Desert, creating a crater visible from orbit. Sarah's ship limped toward the nearest safe landing zone, which turned out to be what remained of Cairo. As they descended, she could see humans emerging from shelters, staring at the sky where the harvester ship had been. They landed hard. Medical teams were waiting, pulling out the wounded. Sarah refused help until all her team was off the ship. Then she let herself collapse. She woke in a hospital 3 days later. Tavrine was sitting beside her bed, looking older somehow. "How bad?" Sarah asked. 2 billion dead," Tavrine said quietly. 37 cities completely destroyed. 5 colonies wiped out. He paused. "But Earth survived. Humanity survived. And the harvesters are destroyed." "All of them?" "We tracked the signal. When you infected the main ship, it transmitted corrupted data to the rest of their fleet before dying. The infection spread to every harvester vessel within range. They're all dead or dying." Sarah closed her eyes. 2 billion people. The number was too large to process. "The Confederation Council wants to speak with you," Tavrine continued. "They watched the entire battle. All 7 species watched humanity fight. And they are afraid of you." Tavrine's feathers rippled, "but also grateful. For 300 years we hid from the harvesters. You destroyed them in 3 days. At terrible cost. Yes. But you did what the Velari could not. You found a way to win." Sarah opened her eyes and looked at her friend. "What happens now?" "Now, we rebuild. The Confederation will help. Real help this time, not manipulation. We owe you that much." Tavrine stood. "And humanity takes its place as what it was always meant to be." "What's that?" "The galaxy's shield. The species that doesn't hide from monsters but fights them. The Confederation has been searching for 300 years for someone to replace the Velari." He smiled sadly. "We found them. We just wish we had been honest from the start." Sarah didn't answer. She was thinking about the 2 billion dead, the cities destroyed, the lives shattered. She was thinking about humanity's future, standing guard over species that couldn't protect themselves. She was thinking that maybe humanity's violent history, its warrior instincts, its refusal to surrender weren't flaws to be civilized away. Maybe they were exactly what the galaxy needed. 6 months later, Sarah stood on the bridge of humanity's first true warship. It was built with Confederation technology and human determination. Around Earth, dozens more were under construction. In the academies, young people trained to protect not just humanity but all of the Confederation. The Valari were gone, but their purpose lived on. Humanity had become the galaxy's guardians, the ones who faced the darkness so others could live in light. Sarah looked at the stars and smiled. It wasn't the future anyone had imagined 3 years ago, but it was the future humanity had earned. Somewhere in deep space, human scouts hunted for any remaining harvester signals. They would find them, they would destroy them, because that's what humans did. The age of hiding was over. The age of humanity had begun.